In this video, we're going to discuss an alternate method for styling form submission buttons on a web page. And this video and this next few that I'll be making are in reference to a couple of questions that came in and how to make maybe more expandable buttons and effects to compensate for different lengths of text. Because in the previous video that came when we're styling form buttons, I had showed you how to use an image to create a hover effect on these form buttons. So let's just dive into what we have here. When you open the files, if you've downloaded them from jjmassey.com, you'll have a couple of directories. You'll have a CSS file, an images directory which is empty, and an XHTML template. And I'm just going to run you through those really quick. In the XHTML template, you have it's an HTML5 document, and there's no title specified here, and we have a simple form with no attributes applied to it, and I've created a simple input button inside of there, and the value, if you remember from the previous video, was what the text is actually going to be displayed inside of the button. In the style sheet, if you notice right off the bat, the button doesn't look like the standard button. It has a blue background, has a nice hover effect, it has a 2-pixel border, the font color has been changed and styled to bold. And those were done very easily with just some basic styles inside of the style sheet. You can see here, screen.css, some body alignment just to get the button into the middle of the page, and then we target the input button using input type equals submit. I've set some defaults here just to get rid of the default background color, form button, changed the cursor to a pointer so you see the finger, added some padding to keep the border away from our text that we're displaying, set a font size a little larger, font weight to bold, created a 2-pixel solid border, set the background color, set the color of the text with color, and aligned the button to the center of the page, which we actually don't really need because we're doing text align center, so I'm just going to remove that now. And the hover effect is controlled by selecting the input button again, type equals submit, hover, and just changing the background color. And what that gives us here, if I refresh this, is exactly what we see, and then that mouse over just highlights that button. Okay. Now the question came in is we want to make nicer looking buttons, maybe not so squared, so they have a little more flair to them. And my response to that was, well, one option would be to use CSS3. I've done a little legwork, and I found an awesome reference sheet for using styles. And the thing that you need to remember when using CSS3 is that it's not compatible with older browsers. And even some of our favorites like Firefox or Chrome, they have more specific methods that you need to use if you want to make sure that your effects are carrying over into the older versions of those browsers. And this document supplied by Mozilla.org is an awesome reference sheet for that. The two styles that we're going to be focusing on, I already have tabs open for. One is the text shadow, and this will create, you can see in their example here, they have this orange shadow kind of bumping off to the top. It's -2 pixels and orange. So that's one thing we're going to be using to add a little shadow to our text in the button. The other one is a rounded or a radius cornered box for our submit button, and we're just going to apply that directly to our button, and what that's going to do is round out the corners and give us that nice effect. Inside of the template, I already have the code already written out for you here. Very simple, it's just these 2 lines. And just a note that these are only going to work in the most current browsers. I'm using the latest version of Chrome. I don't know off the top of my head what version that is. And I'm using Firefox version 6, and I also have the most updated version of Safari. these will also work in Internet Explorer version 9. So let's just start with the radius and do some testing with that. And we're just going to apply that to our input type equals submit here. Let's just give another line and paste that in. And if we go back to our HTML page, and I'm just going to give this a quick refresh, you can see right away that it's rounded out the corners for us. And it gives a really nice effect. I also have this same page open in Safari. Oh, that was something I was testing. If I refresh that, you can see we still have our rounded corners and our mouse over effect. And if we take a look at this in Firefox, I know I'm using version 6 and I just refresh that, you can see we have our rounded corners. So we know the base fact, okay, so if our CSS is not being supported by a browser, they're going to at least see a squared styled, oh, we don't want to remove our color here. Don't do that. Sorry. Save it. They're at least going to see a nicely styled button. It's going to be hard edged, but we'll have a nice border and it's very customized. But if they're using a newer browser, they're going to get an enhanced effect for doing that. It's almost like rewarding them for making sure they have an updated browser. So the second style we're going to use here is text shadow. And that's going to add a little bit of a drop shadow to our the text inside here. So you see the word submit, and if I refresh it, you see this little bit of a shadow coming out down here. Alright? And that's pretty much it. Now, I do recommend you referencing the, if I pull up this page here again, do reference the Mozilla.org CSS reference guide. This is just fantastic. It has a large list, very expansive, and then when you go into one of the specific properties that you're trying to use, it goes ahead and breaks down how each browser will render that, and if it's not supported by the browser, what alternatives you might have to be able to achieve the effect you're looking for. And the same thing, this is for border. It tells you how to use it and the documentation behind it. I think I've got a second here. So what we can do too with the radius is let's go ahead and increase that. And if we increase the value in pixels, you can see a little bit of jumping around here. If I refresh that, you can see we're getting even more of a rounded effect on our edges. And with CSS3 as well, you can do just one side, you can do just the top, you can do just the bottom, or pretty much anything you want. So creating programmatic details for your buttons and graphics you get a lot more control and efficiency when doing so. And now just to show that these buttons are very expandable, to answer that question that came in, I'm just going to jump back over to the HTML template. I'm just going to copy this guy down, and I'm going to change this value to something ridiculously long here. Save that and refresh, and you can see the button automatically re-renders itself with a new width. We have our nice shadowing, we have the rounded corners that we had specified, and our hover effect.